Hello duelists, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to go over one of the most underappreciated archetypes released in recent times, and that is Mikanko from Amazing Defenders. I think people have looked at it and talked about it, but I think the way they are approaching that archetype is not correct. So I'll be explaining what people are doing right now and what they should actually be looking at when it comes to Mikankos. Before I continue, I'd like it if you guys could leave a comment down below telling me if you enjoyed the video and what else you'd like to see, as well as hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so you know when I post videos in the future. Also, you guys should go to tsx1.com where you can get Team Samurai sleeves and use the code POTATO5 for a discount on these incredible sleeves. And I know people often say or think that the branded sleeves, like Konami sleeves, aren't particularly great. I've used these sleeves for the last couple months or so, including at the last 2 events I've won, and they are great. They're good quality, and I have no regrets using them, and I will continue to use them for as long as he's making them. So make sure to go check them out. All right, so on screen here, you can see I have a libromancer Mikanko deck. This is pretty much taken from MBT's channel. There's not much crazy to it, and I'll show you guys the main combo you're going at. It's really trying to look at Mikanko from the perspective of a ritual deck. And while I can appreciate that, it means you can search it relatively easy. I think at a certain point you hit a redundancy in the amount of ways you actually need to search a ritual. With that redundancy, you're sacrificing a lot of power, a lot of utility, and it's overall just not exactly what I want to be looking for. Let me show you what that combo may look like. Okay, so here we are presented with a pretty typical libromancer Mikanko hand. You have a lot of redundancy for rituals in the deck, so it will be fairly consistent. And you can see we're going to go through the actions here of getting through all your monsters. Go through the libromancer stuff, use the Ben 10, summon a bunch of guys out. If you need to know what these cards do, you should go check out MBT's video. He'll give you a more understanding of how the cards work. I'm going to look at kind of the more meta relevancy to it all. But you notice here, he's actually not really using the Mikanko cards for the combo portion of this. That's kind of not using them to their full potential. This is pretty much just libromancer, and it's going to end with the Mikanko guy for the steal. And that's cool, but it's not even like a crazy step up from what they could have been doing beforehand. And if they were not relevant before, would the one steal make a difference? Well, the obvious answer is no. So this is kind of fine. I'm going to show you guys what you could be doing that is the same, but just leagues better. And voila. So yeah, this is Tearlaments. And before you guys get upset that I'm talking about Tearlaments here, I will be explaining why this is not just a tier element engine, why its synergy with Tearlaments also matters for other decks, and the specific way that I'm looking at it. So obviously this field is just strictly better than the last field, but we're still just using, in this way, the Mikanko card as an end piece in the same way that the libromancer deck did. And from that regard, any deck in any meta ever could do that, and that would be kind of stupid. Yes, it is nice to have a 1-card level 6 that just summons itself and is a kind of steal. That's solid in its own right, and almost any deck can use that to some degree of success. But what I want to focus on is the amount of synergies that it has with graveyard-based decks, and how it actually counters one of the most prevalent archetypes that's being used right now as an engine as well. Okay, so let's go over why the Mikanko cards can be used more of engine pieces than just something to end on, and something like Tearlaments. So we can see here we have a bunch of graveyard effects in the hand, and what I'm going to do is just use Mikanko to add and discard. What's important to know here is discard is an effect, so would trigger Tearlaments. But either way, it's great that it essentially acts as a level 6 extender that's going to discard a card as an effect in order to summon it. So that's a perspective that people aren't looking at, which is pretty good. Very synergistic with graveyard effect, something that the Mikanko libromancer deck didn't really capitalize on. For what is more, as you can see here that at this point I don't have a monster field. If they try and summon a bestial against me, well, they can't. So it acts as a branded in high spirits, in Tearlaments, or in any graveyard-based deck that has somewhat of a fear of bestials, and I'm free to keep going. So now let's talk about mud dragging the swamp. That's another problem Tearlament faces when you kind of go for the aggressive milling. There often are ways to prevent it from happening or stop it, but say we don't hit a shuffler, ignoring what happened in this situation, and they are able to make mud drag into the swamp. Now, there aren't great ways to deal with this in this deck. You typically need triple tactic talents to get it off the field. However, what's nice about the Mikanko monsters is Ohime targets the spell in grave, not the card on field. So we send Mirror Reflection Rondo here, and we target it. It can get equipped to Mud Dragon, and we take control. This is taking precedent from an OCG ruling where Call of the Haunted can target Mud Dragon. It summons, and even though now it's continuously targeting the Mud Dragon, it's not going to cause a problem. So if they update this with an official ruling that contradicts what I'm saying here, then I guess you can't do it, but the rest of the card is still good. However, for the time being, with my current understanding of the cards, this is a great way to search an out to Mudragon at the swamp. So now what happens if we keep playing and they bestial you? This is a common theme when you're playing any light or dark deck, and now you can just steal it. And this Mikanko clears their field, which kind of makes the bestials into the Crow, but almost better for you because now you have access to Beatrice or Wallow, depending on what you need. But say they're trying to suffocate you early in the turn, Beatrice is nice. Being able to make a Beatrice without normal summoning and for minimal commitment, while maybe even triggering other synergistic pieces in the same turn and taking away cards from your opponents, is incredibly high value. And I think that as an extender is where this card really shines. Now, there is the other way to really use this. I'm going to argue, oh, there's less ritual cards. You don't have as much access to the Mikanko cards. Well, it's not true. When you're going through about 20, 30 cards in your first turn, you are going to be milling Diviner pretty often. And then you can elf back the Diviner and then send the Archetype, add the Mikanko, and that kind of goes bananas. And now with Tearlaments in general, with the Ishizu cards, you don't really have to worry about your engine pieces getting milled and then not having access to them. The Ishizu cards put them back. So those concerns aside, you actually do have pretty consistent access to the Mikanko cards to punish stuff like Bestials. And what's really cool is when you've gone through all three of your tier effects, or even if you already used Merly's summon effect, it makes Elf way stronger. Before, you couldn't really do anything with it. It was bring back Orange Light, which is not great, or Merly, or Diviner when you didn't have much good stuff to send. Now that you can summon Diviner and send Arclight, add the Mikankos, it means you almost have another push beyond the 3 summons you get with the tier element fusions that turn into something meaningful in next deck. It gives you Interruption if you want to leave the Ohime on field. It gives you access to level 6 Tuner, so you can go into Wallow or Beatrice, and also clears cards off the field. You can end it on the Ohime, steal a card, exceed with the card you stole, or synchro with it, put the spell back in the grave, and then steal on their turn, so it's an interrupt. Or you can just steal it and then turn that into Dweller, and then the Ohime into like Beatrice. It's extremely flexible, and it really depends on what you want, but it's a great extension tool that can really combat a heavy bestial hand from your opponent, or just anything that puts up a lot of bodies, to the point where it's better than Talents in that regard, where Talents would be good to punish them from going heavy onto the field in your first turn. The Mikankos do it better, and they're not as cloggy because they can start your combo like we saw a couple minutes prior. So this is what the Mikanko tier element deck list may look like. I'm still fiddling with ratios, as with the Diviners you have more normal summons here, and that could be something of a conflict that I want to solve. So I'd be messing around with ratios between the more engine cards we now have, the more less utility cards, which we'd have to try balance out, and the normal summon engine as well. That's all something that is worth messing around with before you have your final build. It's something I'd like to keep exploring, but something I have not found the final mount at yet. One thing I have tried though is 60 cards, and I can tell you from experience, I wanted to test it out at regional and see how much it would impact the ratios. And while it didn't go terribly for me, I did have a noticeable difference in quality of my mills. That should seem like an intuitive thing to say, but it's always worth getting some field experience, and did not work out. But besides that, I did say that this engine has other uses besides Tearlaments. So whenever you're looking at something like this, it's important to kind of extrapolate why it's good and then how it can be applied to other sections. So what you can see here is that Mikanko serves as a great counter to Bestials, because now whenever your deck is weak to Bestials because you're a lighter dark graveyard deck, you can punish the Bestial by making a rank 6. And then when they don't have Bestials, you can still use it as an interrupt, and you can still also use it as a way to fuel your graveyard. So something like Drytron that may have left and turned into obscurity because of Bestials now means you can summon it when they Bestial you, steal a monster, make a Beatrice, put a new Drytron in the grave, and keep going, and everything is a lot better than it was before. And obviously in that deck it is searchable with Diviner, Ben 10 as well. But even if you don't want to do that, you can play preps in the deck and have 6 copies of your extender and Bestial punish in something like Shadal or Burning Abyss, where now if they Bestial you again, you just make that rank 6 for free, they lose their free body, and you can either extend with a Wallow or Beatrice, or even other rank 6s that may come out. Maybe there's some setup you can do with the rank 6 that revives a monster. I'm not sure the name of the card. Or something with the Dragulas as an interrupter. M7 to add back a card from the grave. Maybe even that in Tearlaments if you're dumping, you're milling a bunch and there's a hand trap you want. The options are pretty wide. And I think looking at Mikankos from the perspective of this is a Bestial counter and a rank 6 and a light and dark or graveyard effect combo piece should shift how they're used to a point where they're actually really strong and should have a spot in the metagame. So I hope I've given you some food for thought to take these Mikanko cards and put them in either Tearlaments or some other graveyard deck, light or dark, or something else to make something truly fun, stronger, innovative, anything of the sort. I hope it is some useful information for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. I'll try and make more videos like this in the future where I discuss the meta and something that maybe isn't that obvious to the general populace that I think is being overlooked. See you guys next time.